Thank you. How many people were here yesterday? Most of you, good. Then a lot of foundational stuff I don't have to talk about so much. Little bit for the new people. First of all, Steve, thank you for introducing me as a friend, because not every place I go do they think I'm a friend. If this were a conference of pharmaceutical representatives, they don't think I'm such a friend. Big food companies don't like me so much either. But anyway, thank you so much for coming again to hear what I have to say. I'm Pam Popper from Columbus, Ohio, and I'm president and founder of Wellness Forum Health and the Wellness Forum Institute for Health Studies, which is a school that we started in 2009 because we feel that there's a lot lacking in health professional education, and we're trying to change that. Our main goal in our main service that we offer is informed medical decision making, which means that consumers should have full knowledge of the risks and benefits of anything they're thinking of doing related to diet and health. That includes diet, supplements, screening tests, diagnostic tests, drugs, procedures, before they make a decision. The reality is, and a lot of times in my office, what we're doing is we're looking retrospectively back at what people have done and figuring out if certain things were a good idea or a bad idea, and then trying to do better coming forward. And people sometimes say, gosh, Pam, you're so lucky. You're in the prevention field. I have to tell you something. The horse is out of the barn. We're not in the prevention field. We're in the fixing field. Most of the people in this country are sick. Most of the people in this country who are adults are taking drugs. And by the time they're my age, I'm 61, they're taking lots of drugs. So I'd love to be in the prevention business, but I probably spend 11 minutes a week on prevention, and the rest of it we spend solving the mess that gets made when you have a combination of consumers who don't understand what they need to do to take care of their health, practitioners who are poorly trained and don't read the medical literature and don't know what to do and what to advise people about how to take care of their health. That's the mess that we're trying to clean up. And I think it's a fixable situation. I think the fact that this conference keeps growing every time it's put on is an indication that Americans want things to be better. Everybody all over the world wants things to be better. And I'll say for the record, I get sick and tired of hearing about when people complain about these slothful Americans that don't care about their health, and they aren't willing to work at health, and they don't want to eat better, and they just want to take a pill. There's some people like that. But I don't think that Americans who don't care about their health, I don't think that those are the type of people who are spending millions of dollars on diet programs and books and going from doctor to doctor looking for solutions. I see the opposite. I think people really are seeking health. And I've told many health professionals, this is why I'm such a popular girl, I've said, what you're doing is you're pointing the finger at other people as a way of deflecting attention toward your own shortcomings, and I really think it's abominable. So anyway, these types of audiences, you people care about your health, and that's what I love about coming to this type of a conference, is that there's so much good feedback and questions, and I think there's more of this all over the country. There are people who want to be well. Now we just have to spread the word about how to do it. So today we're going to talk about gastrointestinal disorders, and this is a good topic to talk about because so much of the rest of your health is dependent upon the health of your GI tract. I'll just start by telling you that eating and digestion and elimination are not supposed to cause all kinds of discomfort. I mean, you have to think about it. How could humans have ever survived back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers and cave dwellers if every time we ate a meal we became constipated or had diarrhea or we had reflux? I mean, we'd be so distracted by our GI symptoms we never could have outrun the animals chasing us and managed to survive. This is not supposed to be the way things are. Pain, gas, bloating, heartburn, constipation, these are all signs of a poor diet, but they're very common. This is one of the problems we face today, is the fact that so many people are sick and miserable that being sick and miserable has become the norm, and people don't any longer think that it's a real problem. And if you turn on the television, I watch some TV, not very much compared to many people, but I don't think you can watch television for a half hour without seeing some type of advertisement for a drug or a supplement that is designed to address gastrointestinal distress. So that's a sign that a lot of people are doing a lot of things wrong. So this all begins in the gut. The surface of the digestive mucosa, measuring up and down and around all the folds, villi and microvilli, is about the size of a tennis court. Think about how big that is. That is what the surface of the intestinal mucosa looks like. We actually started looking at the gut bacteria as having some significance back in the early 20th century. Eli Metchnikoff won the Nobel Prize, and he was the first person to suggest that there was such a thing as beneficial bacteria in our gut that might help us stay healthy. In fact, there are about 1,200 types of bacteria in our digestive tract, 100 trillion bacteria down there. And to put that in perspective, there are 37 trillion bacteria, or 37 trillion cells that make up the entire human body, and 100 trillion in our gut. So there are more of them than there are of us. And the two most important are lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. So what do these bacteria do? Well, they produce tiny amounts of some vitamins like vitamin K, short-chain fatty acids. They create an acidic environment that's pretty hostile for pathogenic bacteria. They assist in digestion and nutrient assimilation. They provide protective barrier to entry into the bloodstream. They regulate immune function, and they help to regulate mood through the production of neurotransmitters like serotonin and melatonin. And isn't it interesting that psychiatrists are so focused on chemical imbalances in the brain, when actually we should be focused on the production of those neurotransmitters in the gut? That's where all the action is. So, yeah, well, we definitely should not be concentrating on chemical imbalances in the brain since there isn't any such thing. In some branches of medicine, we just make stuff up. What can I say? All right, so where does this bacteria come from? Well, the origin is actually in the placenta. We didn't used to know this until recently, but it's about 10% bacteria by mass, and there are about 300 different types of bacteria. And it wasn't so long ago, actually, that we discovered that this bacteria survives and the baby has some of it in his mouth and in his gut after being born. Another way in which infants or humans acquire the bacteria is through vaginal delivery. And in fact, the colonies of bacteria in the vagina start increasing in the third trimester in anticipation of a vaginal birth. Infants born via C-section acquire their bacteria from the hospital environment, which, as you might imagine, is not quite as good as acquiring it from mom. So the really good transmission of bacteria, the way nature intended it, is done through vaginal birth. Babies born via C-section, their microbiomes are different. They have much slower development of beneficial bacteria and higher levels of pathogenic bacteria like C. diff. These differences are sustained. By the age of 7, most kids still have big differences between the vaginally born and the C-section babies. Now, let me say this for the record. I think C-section births are sometimes the thing to do to save the baby's life or the mother's life. We just do way too much of it here. It's an elective procedure in too many cases. 30% of the, we have the highest rate, I should say, of C-section births in this country in any place in the world. One of the problems is we do it too often, convenience of the doctor, convenience of the mom. The other thing is the myth that if you've had one C-section birth, you must now have all C-section births, which is not true. Women who've had a C-section birth can vaginally deliver a child. Breast milk is the next thing, and there was some conversation about breast milk when Dr. Campbell lectured yesterday during the Q&A. So breast milk seeds the bacterial colonies. And actually, colostrum, which is the first thing that comes out of the breast, has really dense bacterial diversity. The composition of bacteria in milk is very different depending on the health of the mother. So there's a lot of data on this, but I'll just pick one example. Again, this is stuff where I have like 25, 30 hours of lecture, and I'm trying to condense it here. So just one example is the composition of the bacteria in the milk of a mother with a higher BMI is different than a normal weight mom. There's also a difference in the bacterial composition of the milk for the mom, depending upon whether she delivered the baby via C-section or vaginally. Milk samples from moms who delivered via non-elective C-section showed bacterial composition close to the milk of the mother who delivered via vaginal delivery. So what I'm saying is that in nature's perfect plan, the body seems to know if the C-section was warranted or not. If it's warranted, the body makes adjustments and says, it's not mom's fault. So we are therefore going to make arrangements to change the composition of the breast milk in order to make up for what was lost by not having a vaginal delivery. And I think this is a great example of the fact that we don't have enough respect for nature's perfect plan. There is a perfect plan. It's how we survive to be able to be in the same room today and have this conversation. Breast milk contains a prebiotic, several types of prebiotics and oligosaccharides that promote the growth of beneficial bacteria like bifidobacterium. And one of the reasons why we see a high concentration of bifidobacterium in the infant and toddler's gut is it inhibits the growth of pathogenic bacteria, promotes a really good thick lining of the mucosal barrier, reduces inflammation. Infant formula containing probiotics promotes the gut microbiome some, but it's not a substitute for the rest of it. So we keep thinking that because we're so smart as humans, we're somehow going to be able to duplicate nature. There's really no duplicating nature. Breastfed infants have a lower colonic pH, and what that is important for is low colonic pH results in an environment that's real hostile for the pathogenic bacteria. It keeps the colonies in check. They have a higher concentration of fecal acetate than formula-fed or infants fed both breast milk and formula. Bifidobacteria, the good bacteria, produce acetate. It's an anti-inflammatory substance and it protects against pathogens. Just one bottle of formula per day during the first few weeks of life can shift the microbiome to higher levels of pro-inflammatory bacteria and lower levels of acetate. Again, we can't fool Mother Nature. There was a commercial. Some of you might be old enough to remember this commercial on TV. They used to say it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. And I think it was promoting butter. Not such a good thing to promote, but the point was well taken, right? It's not nice to fool Mother Nature. Using formula with breast milk diminishes the benefit of breast milk. It alters the structure, quality, and quantity of the microbiome. Formula feeding allows for bigger increases in C. difficile and other pathogenic bacteria and decreases the bifidobacteria content. If the baby is formula fed, obviously you're going to end up with a different microbiome. And you can measure it at 7 days and at 19 weeks. And what you see is by 19 weeks, there's a little bit of catching up. But again, if you go all the way out to 7 years, you'll see that it never is quite the same as if the baby was vaginally born and breastfed. So consequently, babies that are breastfed and C-section birth or both should take probiotics. And you can give probiotics to a baby. Basically, you get a powdered probiotic. The mother licks her little fingers and puts it in the well and sticks it in the baby's mouth. And I'm going to knock on wood here. We've never had a baby that refused to suck the bacteria off of the mom's finger. They think it tastes good, which is good. Maybe they instinctively know it's good for them. And so we recommend this. And by the way, sometimes the vaginal birth and breastfeeding thing isn't an option when parents adopt babies, for example. So our parents who are members of Wellness Forum Health are pretty well trained, and one of the first things they'll do when they adopt a baby is say, I need to come by and get some probiotics for this little kid because we're not exactly sure about the birthing, and we know this baby wasn't breastfed because we got it when it was a few weeks old or even a few days old. So that's one of the ways that you can protect some. And we have some really good studies that have shown that probiotics for kids like this make a difference. And we also have some studies showing that even vaginally born breastfed kids benefit from taking probiotics. They get a little fewer infections, less colds, flu, that sort of thing.